Podcast SEO, 15 monetization tips for local businesses. Now, I'm going to do this for not just local businesses, but I'll also do it for national businesses and also in between regional businesses and also externally international businesses, so that we're not clumped up in one space. So it's going to be a spread out map, which I'm excited about. So welcome Kawina, Brittany, Paresh, Jack, Lynn, Mariam. Thank you for being here today. I hope you're all having a wonderful day too. Arnold, thanks for being here. Danny too, welcome to the Marketing Club. You are listening to one of these great topics that I bring to you on a daily basis, almost a weekly basis, pretty much semi-weekly, to discuss topics like this, because I know how important this type of information is. And the reason why I even do this is because I do research first. So I know that people need this type of information, and I want to help you get that. So today we're going to talk about podcast SEO, and more specifically, podcast monetization, right? Podcast monetization, and there are going to be 15 monetization tips for local businesses I'm going to share with you. And even when I do it for the others, these are still going to be the same applicable ones, but the only difference is you'll be dealing with it from an international level, from a national level, from a regional level, or from a local level, like what we're doing today. So today is going to be based on local. So why am I bringing this up, and why is podcast SEO one of the most important things for today? Podcasting is one of the best channels that you can use as a business, as a local business, to gain local authority. Welcome, Francis. Because you're looking for page dominance, you're looking for marketing experience, you're looking for visibility. These are the very same things that you need, but you're not sure how to get it. So one way that I've done, which you're experiencing because of what I did, is I went to start a podcast in 2019. And I started a podcast August 12th, 2019, because I wanted to talk to the world. I wanted to connect with the world. That's still happening till today. 156 countries later, 600 episodes later, 7 years in August. So I know that this is important to you because I see it on my feed. Even AI now responds back and tells my podcast, hey, you should talk about some podcast monetization. People are looking for that within your ecosystem. So why not talk about it specifically? So I'm like, okay, I'll even break it further and break it into subparts, because I can't fit everything in one topic or in one room or in one conversation. It's going to be cumbersome. So I decided to split it up so that you can hear how these apply to you. And if you hear any of these 15 across any of the next episodes you hear, then apply the same concepts, but apply it to your business type, your business style, your business industry, your business operations. That's for you. I don't know what that looks like because I don't know your business, but you know it better than I do. So you can use this as a way to tailor and ask yourself, am I on these platforms? And if I'm on these platforms within this 15, how are they all translating back to my bottom line? How are they all translating to my overhead costs? How are they all translating to my brand? So that has to be a big deal. And that starts off with creating content today. Now, the first thing I want to say is when it comes to podcast and monetization, right? The first monetization tip is going to sound very basic, but this is the one thing that if you miss, the whole bus, the whole train, the whole plane, the whole mission is a failed mission, right? This is the most important thing. And even you have one. So that's why it's so important to you, and that's why it should be so important to you as well. The first monetization tip for local businesses or for any other business is your podcast title. It's going to sound very like, huh? Oh, duh. I'm serious. It's your podcast title. Why? Because your podcast title is like a book. If the name of your book is Harry Potter, that's because you know about Harry Potter. But if you've never in your life ever heard about Harry Potter, you're not going to have the same effect that somebody that has heard about Harry Potter would have when they see a book or when they watch a movie, right? So you can't assume it's universal to all. So you have to also think about the lines in between the lines. So why am I saying this? You have content and you have context. When you have a book, if the book is The Power of Positive Thinking, right? That's a very known book that you've heard about. My dad has told me about this book always. I have that book too. I read it before. I have it again. It's very important to look at these things and ask yourself, what are you creating with your brand, and what is the name? What is your name? If I ask you what is your name, you're going to tell me what your name is. So if I ask you what your podcast title is and what your podcast name is, what would you say? And then another thing to also look at, which is also important, a lot of people kind of miss this, but I'm using today to break this down so that when we go through the end of this series, I've covered every area possible. And if there's anything that was missed, then tell me, and I'll be happy to do something like this again. The one thing that is so undervalued is when you tell somebody what your podcast title or what your podcast name is, watch their response, watch their feedback, pay attention to what they say back to you, respond back how they would have responded back to you too, based on how you were able to say it the first time. If they ask you, oh, that's interesting, what is that about? Or, okay, that's nice. Those are two different responses. And that's going to lead to two different types of conversations after the fact. So when you're creating content, your podcast title is so important. So even if you have a pseudonym, or if you want to call it something, the talk show, that's great. But why I'm being very specific about this when it comes to SEO, podcast SEO, is that your title matters. If you talk about health, relationships, finance, food, pets, travel, whatever it is, marketing, business, advertising, education, they're very specific. So when you have a title of your podcast, that title of the podcast show has to also match the style that you're also creating for your show. Why am I saying this? Because when someone's going to look for your show, they're not going to look for your show's title. They're going to look for your show's benefit or your show's topic of interest. Your name is going to follow after the fact that they know what your show is about, right? If I tell you what the name of my show is, you'll be like, okay, that's great. What does that mean? Or what is it about? But you've already had an idea of what it is. Like my podcast is called We Don't Play. Now, the next thing you'll be thinking about is, okay, what does we stand for? We is community. We is us. We is you and me, right? I can't do this without you, right? We can't do things without each other. That's why we need each other to do things together. So the we in the We Don't Play states that we don't play around. We don't play with our time. We don't play with our money. We don't play with our family. We don't play with God. We don't play with anything that is precious and very sentimental to us. So we don't play with those things. We don't play with life, period. So when you hear that, it sets the tone for how you're going to now see how people respond back. And I've connected with so many people over so many countries, in different countries. Just 2 days ago, I had about close to 3-4 hours. In between that schedule, I talked to 2 different people that were in the same country outside the US and the UK. And amazing people, got to connect with them. And the week before, I was talking to someone in Lithuania. And every time I'm talking to someone in a new country, and it's beautiful to see that when they're listening to the podcast, and thank you for listening, you're gaining something, you're learning something, and at the same time, you're earning some type of value that is going to make you do things better. Because if I knew things the way I know them now, then I would be way far ahead than I am now. But I'm farther ahead than I am now because I took what I knew then and practiced, planned. Let me say it this way. I was able to test and understand, okay, why is this happening this way? Because you keep learning. You never stop learning. So what I've been able to do now, I know that in 7 years of podcasting, I can save you 7 years and help your podcast grow within 7 to 12 weeks. So it's either you spend 7 years on your own, like I did, or you invest in 7 to 12 weeks and see the same results, or even more, because now with technology and AI and marketing, things are much faster. Imagine being on a billboard, on a digital billboard in your country, in your city, in your state, because you have access to that information. It's possible. So don't think anything is not possible. Anything is possible. You just have to put your mind to it and believe it. So that's why I started a podcast. If you're listening to this, there's no way I would be on Clubhouse if I didn't start a podcast. That's how practical this is. Welcome, Prats, and also Darth. Welcome to Clubhouse. I see you got a party hat on. Welcome to the app. I hope you're enjoying yourself, and welcome to Clubhouse. MD, thanks for being here too. So if you're thinking about your business, right, and you're thinking about how you want to grow long term, this is the time for you as a business owner to look at it from the perspective of how will people respond back to your podcast title? How will they respond back to your show? When they hear the name, what does that mean? So when you go to wedon'tplaypodcast.com, wedon'tplaypodcast.com will give you all the episodes that you want to search about, and by topic, you'll be able to see that interest. Why is this so important? Because if I've never heard your show or never talked to you before, or I've now listened to your podcast and I know that you talk about food, I'm going to think about the type of food you talk about, and let's say chicken or turkey or lasagna or grapes, or just talk about vegetables or hygiene or, nutrition. Those words are now semantically connected to food, either directly or indirectly. So now what you call those I call it on social media or marketing terms or jargon, is tags. Those are tags. So when you put those tags into your podcast, when you put those tags into your title, when you put those tags and turn them into keywords, when you put those tags and turn them into hashtags, when you turn those tags and put them into URLs, uniform resource locators, you're turning those things into machines, into engines that can run on their own. Why? Because when people are searching for things on the internet, they are searching with the same words that you tag them to. So if I say tag, you're it, it's because I had to put something on you for you to be tagged. So there's no tag without a click or without an intention. So when you're thinking about these words, what are the words you want people to search for or search with and find you, whether they're on ChatGPT or Perplexity or Cloud or wherever? These questions are very important. Welcome, Jim. Welcome, Danny. These are very important things to look at. So your podcast title is important. So if the name of your podcast is Apples, okay, why? All right, cool. It's apples. Now, what about apples? If I say that it's apples, how to have a better nutrition in the kitchen, or how to prepare your kitchen better with nutritious tips, or apples, nutritious tips for private chefs. You see how I've gone so many directions that it sounds completely different every time I say something new. It's because when people are searching for things, they're looking for specific, meticulous results. So when they do that, they'll be able to do that within an expansive way of learning and listening to you that will allow them to learn more about what you give. Pratt says, hello, Favour. I'm excited to listen to you today. Thank you for being here too. So your podcast title is big. Your podcast title is big. Now, the second thing is your podcast description. And let me say this before, let me just pull back a little bit before I move forward. Your podcast title has a set number of characters. Just like your blog title, your email subject title or line has a set number of characters with spaces, right? So your podcast title also has to make sense, right? You can make it as long as you want, that's fine. But here's the kicker. If you don't create a podcast title that is helping your website, your podcast, your visibility, your brand, your show to shine, there's specific things that you have to look at, because when you have the name of your show, right after that, describe what the show is about in the title. Some people just leave it as, this is the Apple show. Now, there's no way I know what that's about. But if I put nutrition next to it, or if I put fruits next to it, or if I put interviews with specific types of doctors that talk about nutrition, then that's where you can now see those things come to play when you now have, oh, okay, this person deals with experts, or this person is talking about hygiene, or this person talk about this or that. It doesn't have to be directly at Apple's, but that could be the name of your show. But the way you take it and the way you drive it is what's going to change the trajectory of how people are going to connect back to your show. So your title is important. So make sure that you have the name of your show, and attached to the name has the context of the show. That way, when people are looking for food shows near me, or podcasts about real estate, or podcasts about parenting, or podcasts about marketing, your podcast is somewhere in the ethos. At least it's somewhere. And when I say somewhere, it means that it's within a search filter. And it's not going to be in a search filter if you don't specifically put it within the search database. It's logic. We have to think about that 1 + 1, right? So podcast is RSS, and blogs are XML. Podcast is RSS. RSS is really simple syndication. It's like a floppy disk. XML is expandable markup language, right? So when you go to Google, when you go to Yahoo, when you go to ChatGPT, all these links that we click on, emails, wherever we go on the internet, on the World Wide Web, when you click on a link and it's blue, right? Because most links are blue, unless you change the color. But by default, it's blue. And Google has different colors on their logo, but they choose blue because blue brings trust, confidence. That's why banks are in blue. We can go further and further and further into psychology of marketing, but here's what I'm really trying to say. When you create a podcast title and your podcast title has the right words and it's going to bring the right people in, then it's because people actually care about the topic that's of interest to them. Because at the end of the day, it's not about you. It's about them. If they're not satisfied, if they're not helped, if they're not paid attention to, if they're not appreciated, if they're not listened to, no one's going to listen, because you'll be pretty much just not doing anything. And it wouldn't be a good benefit to you or anybody else, because it's a waste of your time. And you don't want that. So the goal is to build consistency and quality in deliverance, that when you create content within a podcast setup with your title has the right keywords there for you to match. You can go to a website called ivy.fm, and you can scan and see all the podcast shows. Type any word and you can see what kind of tags I'm talking about. I want you to be visual about this. Don't just listen to what I'm saying. Try it out on your own, because if you do it and you find out and you're like, oh, voila, okay, that's what it looks like. Boom, I bet. Before you know it, you're doing it on your own, and it's nature. It comes second nature to you. Just like when you drive a car, you don't think about how to drive a car. You drive a car because you know how to drive a car. You're walking because you know how to walk, right? So these are things that is based on retentive memory. So if you're able to do these things consistently, it will eventually become a reality, and it's just going to be easy for you going forward. So your podcast title is important. Now, your podcast description is also important too. Think about your podcast description like YouTube, because YouTube has about, I think it's 4,000 or 5,000 characters. And I know with podcasts, it's also around the same 4,000, thereabout characters with spaces. So if you know that the podcast description is 4,000 characters with spaces, that means you have a lot of bank, right? It means you have a lot of space. And most times when you're monetizing, most people forget about these boxes. Think about it. If I was to send you a box, or if I was to send you, I love giving analogies, so this is random. If I was going to give you a gift and you were expecting a box to open the gift, but instead there was no box, and you didn't know how, if that's your gift, if that makes sense. You're seeing 3 different things, but you don't know which one is yours because it's not assigned to you. That's the same thing. Because on podcasts, thank you, Pratt, it's fact. Because we all have the same Amazon Prime delivery box, but now there's a tag on it that says your name. That's why I first said your name is important for monetization, because it's your name that you're going to sign against for contracts. It's your name that you're going to use for banks. It's your name that you're going to use for associations. Your name that's going to be for PR. So your name is going to be for credibility. It's your name for everything. So take care of your name. Even biblically, a name is more precious than silver and gold. So if a proverb is telling you that, then you should also know how valuable the name of your product is, because it gets to a point where if you actually take your podcast seriously, you could monetize it to the point where you could trademark it. That's possible. So you have to be very specific about what you're doing. So your podcast description, 4,000 characters, fill it up, right? Get the right keywords, put the things in. Now we have AI. Get the right keywords, put it together, refine it. Because the more you refine what you're telling people, the faster it is for them to find you. Because on Spotify, there's something I noticed. On Spotify, when you're looking for a podcast episode, right? Let's say I'm looking for food. In fact, I'm not even going to guess. I'm going to do it right now as we're talking. So I'm going to Spotify. I'm going to go to the search. Okay, let's role play. Somebody in the chat, anyone that's in the room, put two or three words in the chat. What would you want us to talk about? Or what episode would you listen to if you were to go to Spotify, or just any podcast show? If you go to Spotify and you want to listen to a topic of interest, what would you put in your search box? Somebody put something in the chat. I'm going to pick the first one. So I'll give you guys some time to type and then tell me, because I want to put something in there and I'll show you exactly what it means. If you guys don't have a topic, I'll put one myself. So, all right, I'll put one myself. So I'm going to switch tabs and I'm going to go up and I'm going to look at, let me see, I'm going to search for, workout habits. Let me just be very random. Workout, boom. All right. So workout habits. So now I'm seeing workout habits, workout habit plan, workout hits, workout habits transformation. Now, the word workout has a lot of semantics around it, right? I can see a playlist, I can see an episode, I can see an audiobook, I can see a playlist, an old school workout mix. I can see things there, and I can also see episodes. Now, there's some episodes that I see there that are very specific because I put the word habits. Now, when you have those words in your podcast title, right? Because I'm seeing a podcast right now. When was this podcast? Yeah, December 8th, The Power of Habits, 6 Habits to Change Your Life by the Mindset Mentor. Shout out to you. You know, that's a good podcast with Rob Dial, right? And I'm seeing the podcast there, and that's the episode that is coming to me. I'm giving you guys a real life example. So I'm literally doing this off a whim so that you can see how serious this is. So if you see workout habits here, right? Now it tells me that I'm looking for that information. So now if I click workout habits and I put a space, now I can write 4, and now it says workout habits for men over 40. Now that changes everything, because if I'm seeing workout habits for men over 40, and that is what Spotify is giving me as a reference, just like Google, when you go to google.com and you're searching for something, you get the auto suggestions. That's the same auto suggestion you're getting from Spotify. Now, when you see those words in those brackets, in those search boxes, that is a signal. That itself is a signal. Welcome, Tanisha. That itself is a signal. Why is it a signal? Because now I can put that exact matched phrase into my podcast description, if that's the type of podcast I want to talk about. So if I'm doing workout habits for men over 40, then what brands out there support that? What businesses out there, what products out there, what businesses out there connect with those affinities, with those people, right? Do they go to the gym? What type of gym do they go to? right? What time in the morning or what time in the evening or what time of the day or what time of the night do they go to the gym? So that becomes very important. So if you think about workout habits, then in your mind as a podcaster, I believe psychologically, and this is me doing this randomly, so I'm literally just going on a hypothetical example, but the fundamentals are clear. In my mind, if I was to have a podcast episode about workout habits, then I know that search engine-wise, database-wise, someone's going to type that, and if they're in the gym and they're at the gym at 5 a.m. in the morning, and I drop my podcast episode at 12 a.m. in the morning, or I schedule my episode to launch or publish at 12 a.m. in the morning, and someone is looking for that exact topic. Now, the person that dropped that episode that I mentioned, he dropped it in December. So he doesn't have any competition in that specific context because he's the most recent, and that's the one that's going to get the most display. Because you're looking for visibility, right? That's it. There goes your visibility, right? Now, the ball is in that person's court to decide whether is it value of my time? Am I going to spend time going through this to listen to what he has to say because he has good information that Spotify is suggesting me? Of course, because that's the suggestion that the algorithm have given you. So your goal is to find a solution. The algorithm's goal is to provide a solution. So when you think about it in this way, monetization-wise, don't just think about money. Think about data, because that data is what's going to determine the amount of money you're going to also yield with your podcast. So I'm really going technical into this as well. MD says, search engine only shows your content when the content is value added. That is correct. It's not just about keywords. It's about solving people's problems. That's a fact right there. Thank you for that, MD. That's literally it. Because when you look at the way people are doing things, of course, you can gamify it and say, yeah, I'm going to put my podcast is about bicycles, and then I'm just going to put bicycles everywhere. Then if anyone's looking for bicycles, they can listen to it. That's not it. It's about the exchange. And then you also think about the cadence, right? There's a cadence with podcasting. There's a cadence, right? And what is a cadence? It's how many days within a week span can your podcast be releasing content, and then you're able to now determine that based on a factor of if that episode is within a 7-day span, a 30-day span, a 90-day span. So that's why sometimes you go to podcasts and it will tell you this podcast is semi-weekly, or this podcast is monthly, or this podcast is daily, or it will tell you the cadence is 7 days. That means every 7 days, there's a new episode. It may say 13 days. That means every 13 days on average, there's going to be a new episode. So when you see that cadence, it tells you, so the closer that cadence is closer to a 1, the faster you're able to spin your RSS feeds. What do I mean? An RSS feed is like a balloon that never pops. Let me just say it like that. It's like a balloon that never pops, right? You put helium in it, it's never going to pop, because the more you're putting into it, the more it's actually getting stiffer. It's getting more structured. It's getting more secure because it has something to protect within the layer, right? That's what a podcast is. Because when I give you an RSS feed and I give you an RSS feed, if that RSS feed is long, like a scroll, that means you have hundreds of episodes. But if you just have 2 episodes, 10 episodes, that page is not going to scroll as far down the page as though you have 100 episodes or 1,000 episodes, right? So there's a difference in that depth, because that depth is data. Because within that data is audio, and within that audio is transcripts. Within those transcripts are links, internal links, external links, canonical tags. These are hashtags. They are things that are within those podcast descriptions that if you've placed them specifically, it's going to help your podcast grow. So monetization is not just about how much money is my podcast going to make, because that's what people think about. When I see podcast monetization, the first thing I know for sure, and that's totally fine, but the value exchange is going to be based on the value and credibility that you give. I just found out today that I've gotten featured again on FeedSpot, and my podcast, the We Don't Play podcast show, I'm going to send you all the link. I'll put the link in the chat so that you can see this, because when I saw this today, I was like, wow, this is very exciting to see. So in the US, there are about 15 podcast episodes that have been ranked within the area of SEO, and my podcast came out second. And then there's one for the top 100 podcasts, and mine came out second. So, and you can check my Instagram and you'll see that I posted it out today. So looking at this in itself is telling me that in 2026 already, we're in January, and this is a post that was made just recently. Now, this is something that I'm seeing, and I'm like, okay. If this is where podcast is going and this is how people are connecting, I'm not doing anything. I'm just consistently posting because I know my cadence is getting closer to a 1. And then also the volume of your podcast is important because it's something called an average length. So if you have 10 episodes and each episode is 1 minute, but I have 10 episodes and each episode is 1 hour, I'm going to have more depth than you because I have more time online. I have more screen time. I have more watch time. I have more listen time. I have more screen time. So it's I would call it like a rapid release of information. So if you look at it from that perspective, there are so many ways as a business you can be able to take that to that next level where you're using your podcast description to build that tenacity. So I'll put the link and I'll share that with you guys so you can check it out too. The third place that is so important as well for podcast monetization, because there are 15 I'm going to go through. The third one is author. And please take your time with this information. Don't rush it, because the last thing I want you to do is to rush information and you do it halfway. So if you like number 1, finish number 1, stop. Finish number 2, stop. Finish number 3, pause. Finish number 4, go back. Check those things. And before you get to the 15th step, go through these steps, because I did it in a very specific way so that by the time you're doing this, it's helping you as a business. Now, the last one that I put on this 15 list, I actually wrote it down before I opened the room because I was going to just talk about it, but I said, no, let me actually write it down and give you all 15 because I know about them off head, but I want to make sure that by the time you're done listening, it's in a structural way for you to take home and just rewind and you're able to now put the dots together. So author is number 3. You're the author of your podcast. So if your name is within that section, it's good. But here's another thing that people miss. The same way your podcast title has the name of your show and the type of your show, in terms of what type of topic are you talking about of interest to the listener, is the same way your author should have the same type of semantic, I'll call it naming convention. Because if your name is A, then it's going to be A, your last name is B, then pipeline or pipe or dash or hyphen, and then you put in the same context and say, let me just give you a random example, mental health expert or food specialist or private chef or even now for local businesses, you can say Hawaii real estate broker, right? Or you could even say, let's give a random business. Let's say you do cosmetics, right? And you do lashes. Now you just put your name and then you now say, okay, lash expert. Or you can put esthetician, or you can put, if you're a doctor, you can put your practice there. Those things, the way I'm giving you this extensive information is because you want to expand on your name, because when people are listening to your conversation, if you put your name and you put that information there, they won't know until you tell them. Like for me, my name, if you just look at Clubhouse too, you'll see my name is there, Favour Obasi Ike, and you're going to see their MBA and you're going to see MS. So somebody will read that and be like, okay, those are 2 master degrees, those are 2 graduate programs. So that in itself is already putting you there. If you're a doctor, if you're a physician, if whatever you are, you're a genius in what you do, you put it there so that people can also see the same thing, because they're not going to look for it. That's the last thing they're going to look for. They have bigger fish to fry. So if you're going to create an experience for someone that's going to make sure that you can validate yourself and also validate the algorithm, because that's also going into the system. That's going into the servers. That's going into the API. That's going into the LLM. That's going into the system. So you're building these things semantically, because it's not just about SEO. Gone are the days where you just plaster keywords and just say, okay, yeah, I did your SEO. No, there has to be reason behind it. There has to be value behind it. So your author name is important. So put those names and then put the name of what you are or the title of what you are next to that. And that's going to help you too. Number 4 is the genre. Genre is so important. There's movie genres, there's music genres, there's book genres, right? There's film genres. There's also podcast genres. So your genre matters. If there was a podcast award show, you're not going to be ranking in the sci-fi film industry when you have a podcast about food. It's not going to make any sense at all, because those are completely different affinities, completely different interests, completely different scopes, just different industries, period. So you want to make sure that you're also within that same ecosystem. So when you think about your name, your podcast title, your author, and now your genre is going to help you also determine where you're going to be. So whenever you start a podcast show, determine your genre. Your genre could be education, it could be business. And I'm going to give you guys a direct link. I always talk about it. Go to listennotes.com. Go to listennotes.com/stats. I always say that. Go to listennotes.com/stats. And when you go there, it's going to give you all the genres, right? All of them. And I'm going to put the link in the chat. Usually there's a URL redirect. There you go. So you can put that's the link in the chat. You can also click on it too in the description. That link will tell you, when you scroll all the way down, it's going to tell you the genres. It's going to tell you podcasts by genre. So the top most listened to genre is society and culture, education, business, arts, religion and spirituality, health and fitness, comedy, news, leisure, sports, music, TV and film, technology, kids and family, science, and then others. So if you look at the podcast, there's about over 4 just to be on the safe side, 4+ million podcast shows out there, because every day, not everybody has an active show. So there are 4 million podcasts out there at the very least, right? And each of those genres are within different subsets. Now, yes, we have genres, but we also have primary and we also have secondary. And for some platforms, you have tertiary, right? Sometimes you have those, not all platforms do, because I've seen it all. And I know that some do, some don't, because we've worked with clients. They have them in different podcast stations or different hosting platforms, and they all work differently, but they're all amazing. So it just depends on the one that you like. It just depends on how you like it. So there's a primary audience. Hey, Celeste. There's a primary audience. There's a secondary audience, and there's a tertiary audience, right? So your primary audience, hey, Bianca, your primary audience is going to be focus. And that's going to be one of those options I just listed a few seconds ago, right? It's going to be either education, business, society, religion, spirituality, food, comedy, whatever your podcast is going to be about, that's going to be your niche. So when you now think about 4 million podcasts, don't think you're competing against 4 million podcasts. Think about competing against the percentage of the genre of podcasts that are in that same space. That's what's going to change, because I'm not going to be competing with somebody who is in the, let's say, National Geographic industry. It's not going to be in that lane. It's going to be completely parallel. So if you want to think about creating that genre effect, choose a main one. If it's business, you're talking, do business. And then after that, it's like marketing. That's your secondary. And then let's say you want to do as tertiary. If you have that platform available, it could be like consulting, or it could be, coaching. It could be something that's specific to that niche, because all these things that you're doing, they're called parameters. They're called parameters because these are the same things that if you look at the back end code, because technically Apple Podcasts is iTunes or was iTunes. If you look at the back end code of your podcast show, there's a script behind it. It's going to say the iTunes author. It's going to say iTunes title. The same thing with music. The same thing with your podcast show. The same thing is going to say genre. So if your genre is within a specific genre, that's what the API, that's what the bots are reading. So it's going to match you with the others that are within that same category. And then your listen score based on how you've been able to produce your content is how people are going to find you. So your author is going to be very important. Your genre is going to be very important. Primary, secondary, and tertiary. Focus on primary and secondary primarily because tertiary may not be for everyone if you don't have that access to it. But make sure your primary is solid and your tertiary is solid too. And then if you have your secondary in between, right? Why am I giving you those three? Because if you have a very specific primary and you have a very specific tertiary, welcome Selena, then your tertiary, if it's actually available, is going to be one of the best things that you can ever think about. Think about it like this: your top of funnel, your middle of funnel, your bottom of funnel. That's how I see it. So if your bottom of funnel and your tertiary is services or management or coaching or something that's going to be very specific to your business model, that's where you're going to be winning your bottom of funnel connections. If it's top of funnel is business, it's education, it's society, it's film, sports. Those are big terms. So when you think about that in the middle point, which is where you now focus on marketing, is it advertising? Is it film? Is it production? Is it management? Is it coaching? Those are very specific keywords that's going to help you to determine how best you show up on the internet. So do your research first, and that's going to be a really good way to now, put it into practice. So I've talked about 4, and before we go into 5, I wanted to say hello to you, Celeste. How are you? And thanks for being here. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Here. So, episode title is going to be the next one, right? When moving on to the 5th one. Episode title is the next one. So there's a difference between a podcast title and an episode title. I'm sure you're like, break it down. I will break every single thing down today so that I don't have to repeat myself, so that you have this information to go. Your podcast title is the name of your show with the context. That is one of one. Your episode title is the name of your episode that's going to be interchangeable every time. So if you have 10 episodes, it's because you have 10 different topics. If you have 100 episodes, it's because you have 100 different topics. If you have 1,000 episodes, it's because you have 1,000 different topics. My podcast has 600 episodes. So I have over 600 topics that have been talked about, whether it's 5 hours long or 2 seconds long. My shortest episode actually is 5 seconds. My longest is 5 hours. So I intentionally even did that because I wanted to have a stretch, kind of like an elastic band or a rubber band. So I wanted to, before that 5 seconds was 26 seconds. So I said, I want to push it a little bit further. So what did I do? I made an episode last year and I just said, Merry Christmas. And that was 5 seconds. I said, Merry Christmas, God bless you. That was it. And that was in 5 seconds. And that was the episode. And it's still been listened to today, right? So that is very important. You can do 5 seconds episodes. You can do 5 hours episodes. There are no rules. I just decided I want to be elastic. I want to make sure that anyone that has time to listen has enough to listen through, because the longer it is, the more they can break it down. The shorter it is, the faster they can chew it up. So it's really dependent on how you want to do it, right? But there are easily different ways you can put it together. So your episode title is important, right? And this is something that I do, and I'm sure you're noticing it on my episodes now. Anytime I feature an episode, and I do this with clients as well. So try it on your own and see. But there's strategy to these things. I just want to give you like the top of funnel information. When you have an episode title, right? Put your name at the end and put the person you're featuring at the beginning. It only makes sense because you're featuring a guest. right? Why are you putting the name of the guest at the end? And that's something I used to do. And by the way, I said it again, there are no rules. So you can do it however you like. Don't take what I say and say that is the only way. Please. Jesus is the only way, truth, and life. That's the only thing I'll tell you. And I will tell you this right now, that the only thing that you can change is yourself, your mind, your thoughts, your planning. Everything that requires your time and money and investment is included into your thinking, your capacity. If you read more books, you get more capacity. If you listen to more podcasts, you get more capacity. If you have a coach, if you have a trainer, you expand your vocabulary, you expand your horizon, you expand your capacity, right? The only way to expand, or the only way to create capacity, is to build capacity. That's really it. That's why I'm doing these things passionately, because I want to share with you my experiences that I've gone through. So you don't have to do things in, any other way. Just try them your way and see how it works. Because for me, I used to feature guests, and I still do, but I'll put their names at the end and I'll say, okay, this is a topic, and then this is what their name is. And then at some point I was like, no, let me switch it up, because I love testing, because marketing is all about testing. I switched it, and I now put the name of the guest first, even before the topic. And then I don't even put my name at the end, because I'm like, let them shine, because it's my show, and they're coming to be the spotlight. So let them have the full spotlight. Let me not share the spotlight with them, because it's their time to shine. Even if you listen to my podcast, when I feature guests, I do the less talking. Right now I'm talking, but when I feature guests, I'm doing the least talking. I'm listening, because listen and silent, it's the same word. It's just scrabbled differently, right? So you have to just match that and see exactly what matches best for you and your audience. So I put the name of the guest first, because if someone's going to look for your name, your business, your product, your service, and that's what you have, and people are looking for, oh, I need to get these, for example, let me just give an example. I want to get this. I want to be very specific. It's January. Let's keep it to what I talked about earlier with gym. Let's say I want to go to Lifetime Fitness, right? Now there's a new gym I'm hearing about, EOS Fitness, right? There's so many types of fitness gyms, right, that you're hearing about, because everyone wants to go to the gym. Everyone wants to feel, this is January, it's a new year, it's a new month. I want to get body built. I want to have skin toned down. I want to do all this. Great. That's perfect, right? Now, in that capacity of you thinking like that, right? You, let's say, have something to do with that, and that's your business, and you're the founder of that company, right? Now, if I put your name at the beginning and then I put your brand after your name, the power that has been amplified is like by 1,000, by 10,000. Why? Because then your name is what people know, and people know about you before they knew about your brand, right? If they know about your brand before they know about you, that's a possibility too, right? Some people know Coca-Cola before they know who the Coca-Cola CEO is. That's possible too, right? I'm just giving you very random examples. But the fundamental that I'm trying to bring out here is, when you put the name of the person first in a podcast and you're monetizing, especially when it comes to value exchange, put that person first, right? And let that person see that, yes, I'm here to serve and I'm here to help. So I want to make sure that you can have the full spotlight. And then put the person's name, put what they're talking about, and then close that chapter. So you focus on the keywords, you focus on the key phrases, and you focus on the key names. And then in the description, you can put your name and say, if you want to write in third person or first person or second person, however you want to address it, you put it there in the description, because you still have 4,000 characters with spaces to put your name as many times as you want. But let the person that you're featuring be there first. If you have a topic and you're doing it solo, the name of that topic needs to start first at the beginning. If you're talking about mental health, and mental health is the very last two words of your podcast title, then you've kind of missed the bus, because at some point your URL is going to be what the name of your title is when you hit publish, right? And if mental health is at the end of that slug instead of the beginning of the slug, right? Let's say your website podcast.com / the name of the topic, and then at the end is mental health. Instead of it being your domain.com/mental-health-practices- then you can put your name there, because now it's a solo episode, so you can put your name at the end. Now you're going to wonder, why am I not putting my name at the beginning when I put somebody else's name at the beginning when I feature them? That's a thought I'm thinking that probably somebody's thinking right now. The answer to that question is, why put your name first when you're already the author of the same podcast that you're showing on? The person that you're featuring is never going to be there every time you're there. They're only there once, twice, depending on the number of times that you bring them on the show, but you're there forever because you're the author. So that author section that I talked about is where you fill everything about that you want to do. It's like your ID, right? That's where you fill out information. Then if you want to put your name at the end of your podcast episode, or I'll call your episode title, then you can put it there. And you can also put it in your description, because that's 2 counts. Everywhere you put your name in your podcast or your brand is 1 upvote. In other words, if you put your name in all these places, in all these boxes, and your podcast is now submitted to 50 shows, 40 shows, 100 shows, whatever podcast platforms that are out there, that's 1 to the power of those numbers. So let's say you've been doing your podcast for like a year, right? And now in a year, you've done 50 episodes. Let's say you took Christmas off, you took Thanksgiving off, right? Let's just give it that random example. You got 50 episodes in 1 year, within a 52-week calendar year. Now, in that 50 weeks that you've either published yourself or somebody you featured, all those 50 are sitting on your podcast hosting where you originally uploaded it from, or to. Now, the fact that it's in that platform, there was once upon a time that you submitted your podcast show to Apple, you submitted it to Spotify, you submitted it to iHeart Radio, you submitted it to Pandora, you submitted it to SiriusXM, you submitted it to Podchaser, you submitted it to Castbox. There are so many out there that you submit to. Once you submit to these platforms, now you have 50 episodes sitting in your tank. And let's say each of them was an hour. So you have 50 hours worth of content that is sitting across, let's say, 50 platforms. What you've just done, I just want to give you guys the math and the compounding effect of what we're talking about for monetization. 50 episodes times 50 platforms is 2,500 links. You have 2,500 links that are on the internet across 50 different websites, whether it's apple.com, spotify.com, pandora.com, all these amazing sites that people listen to your podcast through. And they are living there. There are 2,500 links. And in each of those links has your name, has your website link, has your LinkedIn, has whatever social media that you need for people to connect with you on. It's all in there. It's all in there. And why is it all in there? It's because it came from one source. It came from your podcast hosting. So when you hit publish, because you put the name of your episode, you put your episode description, all those things were put together, and that's why it's showing out there for you. That's the reason. So it's very important to think about that too, right? The next thing is your episode description. I've talked about it briefly. Your episode description needs to be there, right? Your episode description and your podcast description have the same number of character fields, about 4,000 plus, right? So you can put your connections there, you can put your contacts there, you can put your links there, you can do italics, you can do bold, you can do H1, H2. It's really exciting to do those things, but if you know how to do them, that's perfectly good. But the goal is to make sure that you have text there and you also have hypertext. That's it. Have text and have hypertext. What is text? The basic text that you're typing that's going to have the keywords, that's going to have the information, the biography, the timestamps, all the things that you want to have that's there, that's going to help the person listening listen more. Because when you have timestamps, just to give you an example out of many, when you have timestamps on your podcast show, it allows someone to dissect your show, especially if it's long. You're actually doing that person a favor. And the favor is being rewarded back to you because you've given them time to process, what they want to learn from you. If I had a 2-hour show and I didn't have a timestamp, how am I going to navigate your show? I'm not going to be skipping in between the line, but if I have timestamps that tell you exactly what I'm talking about at a specific location, then I can jump around. It's like an album. I can listen to track 7, track 2, track 10, track 5, go back to track 4, then finish at track 1. It's really up to you, or just start from track 1 all the way through, right? But most people with podcasts will listen to the episode they're interested in. And then when they're interested in that podcast show, they'll now be interested in an episode. Now, in that episode is where your timestamp lives. And if you have all these things connected, it's going to help you with your monetization, because now you're monetizing. What's the goal of monetizing? The goal is to keep people staying. It's to keep people interacted. It's to keep people connected. It's to keep people engaged. So if they're not engaging because there's a timestamp missing, then how are you going to keep the engagement at a high capacity when you have 2,500 links that need your information, that need your page time? So that's important, because all these are pinging back to you. And if you have a website with your podcast, even better, because you have Google Search Console connected, you have Google Analytics connected. There's a platform called Fathom Analytics. You can have that connected, or Matomo Analytics. You can have that connected. You have these connected analytical tools that help your business to grow. And then you're able to now track back and see, okay, I'm on Microsoft Clarity. I'm on Bing Webmaster Tools. These are free tools that you can use that allow your website to now have that publicity. Now, when you have that, the next step is how you're going to take your podcast there, because there's this little section to your bottom left-hand corner of your Google Search Console dashboard that says links. It's right above settings. When you hit links, you're going to see all the links that your property. This is now where SEO comes in. This is now where you've done all the groundwork. You put your 2,500 links out there. Boom. I bet in a whole year, you've done 2,500 links. Imagine in 2 years, you have 5,000 links. So imagine all those links are linking back to your website, to somebody's social media, including yours. It's just a whole stack. And you've done it in a very strategic way. Now it's easy for you to now show up online, because it's easy for people to find you. They can follow you. They can subscribe. You have links that are clickable. You don't have broken links. You don't have duplicated links. You have great links. You don't have links that don't have canonical URLs or tags, things that are missing, robots are missing. You don't want to have those things missing. So they're very important things to factor in when you think about your show and you think about your podcast. So I've given you podcast title number 1, podcast description number 2, the author number 3, genre number 4, episode title number 5, episode description number 6. Now we're about to get halfway through this. And before we do, if you have any question, please put in the chat. Celeste, as you're listening to this, what's coming to your mind SEO-wise? What are you thinking when you hear links, when you hear data, when you hear engagement, just in general? It doesn't have to be podcast related, but when it comes to monetization as a business, especially local businesses, how can they value SEO so that they are not spending more money, but they're not spending time with their customers?
Great question. So remember how when I popped in on your last room, I had gave a little PSA like, hey, if you're listening to this and you heard what he said, you need to give him a big thank you, because these are things that high-level agencies charge thousands of dollars just on a consultation basis to give you this information. I really like especially the part that you mentioned about like how to title things, and especially the URL slug, how to, put certain keywords in to really make it visible online to people who are searching for certain topics. This is such a huge missed thing that is like, I think a lot of these topics, especially surrounding SEO, sound very high tech, and so people get scared. But this is like the low level things that everyone can do so easily. Like, it's not super hard to like go in and just change, your URL slug. So just doing those little tiny things, you would be so surprised at how impactful they can be to not only, if you have a podcast, but generally if you have a business and you have a website. So I really, really love, I also find it fascinating that across genres, whether you're talking about a podcast or a local business or an e-com business, that the same formulas apply. Like SEO, it kind of reminds me of algebra, which a lot of people hate, but I'm like a mathematician, so I love I love algebra, but no matter if the data changes, the formula stays the same. So love, love, love it. I'll let you get back to it because I'm definitely taking some notes over here. So back to you.
Thank you, Celeste. Before you go back in, we need to say, are you thinking about podcasting this year?
Oh,
And if
Lord.
you
I knew
are,
you were going to ask me that.
because I've been asking you this for like 2-3 years now, and I'm like, Celeste, if you just see, I don't know how to even say it. If you just could see it for yourself, I mean, you may not need it, and maybe that's what you're thinking, but if you're looking at it from, okay, if I'm going to expand this way, what's the best way to go around it and make sure that it still has value exchange over time? And kind of like that way where it's like an index fund, like you're not just posting content and then it just dissolves after 90 days. It's actually accruing over time, over 90 days, 90 weeks over, because you're able to use keywords like we're talking about, and all those links are still pointing back to you. So let's say you have a client or someone that wants to work with you or connects with you on LinkedIn, and they see your post from 2023, or they see your article or your podcast from 2026 in 2027, for example, God willing. That episode would have solved a question that you would have probably spent maybe 10 minutes, which may not look like a lot of time, but you save 10 minutes in the future because you're able to answer that question today. So that's what I'm asking you, but it doesn't have to be now. But I was curious. I was like, are you thinking about it or not?
Oh my gosh. This has been on so I basically have a list of things to do, and then podcast is like towards the bottom. But I think the problem, I'm just going to give y'all my personal business really quick. We're all friends in the room. It's a small room. Hey, friends down there. So I really have ADHD. I don't know if we talked about this. And I realized that with my ADHD, I have to not take on too many projects because that's when I start having a problem. So with that being said, and I'm also very intentional on hey, if I'm going to do some shit, I'm going to do it very well. So I hate doing something half-assed basically. And that's why I haven't started a podcast, because I have so many other things that I'm juggling. However, now we're going to be friends forever, so you can hold me to this. So I have a 17-year-old. She's going to be going off to college in a little bit. And for y'all that have teenagers, or if you have grown children, I'm sure you can testify that even though the job's not done when they go to college, there's so much less that you have to do. Like, I'm this girl's Uber, her chef, her manager, her PR team, like all the things, and that's sucking so much of my time. So when she goes to college, I'll have a lot more free time. So I pull me to this in the next 2 years. I will be doing a podcast. I have so much going on. Do you feel me, Favour? I don't feel like you do, because Favour, okay, I'm also going to have you tell your person, but do you have kids? I don't think you have kids, right? Okay, see, you can't relate, okay? You can do all the things. Listen, my time is just being sucked by these children. But once this one goes to college, I'll have much more free time. So I'm excited to be doing more things.
I'm going to challenge this one, Celeste.
No!
Yeah, let's do it, because let's go there real quick. If you think about it, right? Yeah, I love kids. Can't wait to have kids. Can't wait to, just all the good stuff, right? And I feel like the reason why, this is perfect. So let's just give me a perfect checkmate for you. Listen to this. The reason why and you probably have never heard this before, the reason why I started a podcast is not just to talk to the world, which was my, one of the reasons and one of my primary reasons, but from a long-term perspective, the reason why I started a podcast is so that my kids can listen to my voice. My grandkids can listen to my voice. They can learn about these things without me having to talk about it, where they can reference it and we can talk about it together. So my coming in was saying that when I have kids, they can be listening to that whenever they got to, because podcasts are going to be here forever. Just like we have books here forever. It's now digital audio. You can trademark it. You can turn it into trust. You can do a lot of things that can really build your legacy with your intellectual property. There's even a legislation for intellectual property. Like, I had a connection with I was telling someone yesterday, I was talking to somebody in the UK and on my podcast, and I featured her, and she's all about, trademarks and all these things, and we went deep into that topic. So it's very important to look at it from that perspective and see where that could also benefit you. So why I'm saying this is because we all have 24 hours, right? And I'm not saying that there's a priority. Everyone has a priority, right? Welcome, Eric and Marilyn. Everyone has a priority. And Fidel's too. I see you as well. Pong Pong, thanks for being here. Everyone has a priority. Everyone has something to do, right? But if you look at 24 hours and say, okay, what are you doing between this time to this time? It's either you're going to do it on Clubhouse, or you're going to do it on your phone, or you're going to do it on your computer, on Zoom, on Loom, wherever it got to be, it's being done and you're capturing the audio. Riverside. There's so many options now. And then you just store it. Once you store it, you've answered a question that you already know the answer to, but you're now putting it in form of a documentation, and I'll call it an audio documentation, right? Or audio blogging, quote unquote. So you're creating the surface and the red carpet for now you being the topic of interest to now show up online. And that way, if someone's looking for someone in your area that's local business related, because we're talking about local businesses too. Okay, let's say they want to talk about face painting, right? And you're just giving people like an idea on how to do it on their own at home, and they're looking for face painting episodes. Because you do that as a business already, the reason why your podcast is there is just to amplify and emphasize what you're already doing. It's not going to say, I'm doing it differently. It's just justifying what's already in motion. And then from there, you can use that credibility to back it up and say, yeah, you can go listen to this because I talked about it, and they'll listen to it. And when it's factual, they'll do their research and they'll come back to you. So what you've done is that you've increased your lifetime value as the person that they're going to see as of interest. And then let me say it this way. There's two types of interest. There's person of interest, then there's topic of interest. Now, they're interested in face painting, but they don't know who is going to do it for them or how it's going to get done. But because you have both and it's all in one, like a sandwich, you're able to now allow them to decide, because the ball is in their court after you've created the basketball court for them, right? Now they can hoop, they can do whatever they want to do. They can shoot their 3-pointers because you've given them that opportunity to shine, just because you have that availability locally. And now if it's based on your location, just imagine if what I've just been talking about today, your podcast title, your description, your episode title, your description, your author, and the name of your city and state is inside those boxes. Of course, you're going to be seen online. If you ask ChatGPT, Siri, Alexa for anything, and you have an article supported it, and you already do this as SEO, it's an added advantage to you. Unless you're not looking for a way to build your, I would say like your thought leadership in a way that can be protected. Let me use, for lack of a better word, intellectually. That would be the best way, I would say, in today's world that could happen, because that way you're able to really go back and, pull it out from any time, any space, because you have access to data, because it's from one to many. So I just wanted to give you that idea. When you mentioned that, I was like, yeah, let me tell you a little bit, Celeste, of, since it's it's a nice little room, we can talk about it so you can also hear that side of the story, as opposed to it just not being another thing to do, because podcasting feels like a task. But when you're able to just break it down and say, okay, I got 60 minutes of time, I'll break it down into 10 minutes each. 10 minutes each in a 60-minute stretch is 6 weeks out that you have leverage over somebody else who's doing once a week and trying to do it every other week. So you can break it down into different ways, and then post-production wise, get somebody to do it. I can do it. You can do it. We can do it. At the end of the day, it's getting done. And when it's done, you forget about it, because now you've moved on to the next topic and you have one less thing to worry about. So it's really, really important to look at it that way. And that's why I'm on Clubhouse today, because I started a podcast one day. So I just look at the way life is, and I'm like, if it wasn't for this, it's kind of like Jenga. If it wasn't for this, and then this would have happened. So it's all building blocks to say the least. But I would love to hear your thoughts on it, Celeste, because I know it's been something I've been talking about, and I just want you to see it so that you can believe it.
Oh no, and I can't argue with you on your points. I really can't. I let me just phrase it this way. I feel like, based on my personality and like the way that I do tasks, it's like I have to only do 3 things at a time. If I add a fourth, then everything falls apart. Does that make sense? it's an ADHD thing. So I'm not refuting your point and saying like, oh, I can't do it. I'm like, oh my gosh. Like, and I just know that again, if I do it and I don't do it 100%, it's just going to not be, like I have to I just don't like half-assing stuff. And I already know if I be like, oh, I'll do a podcast just when I have time, it's never going to be done. I'm not going to do it once a week. I'm going to do it like once every other month. So yeah, I'm actually having a hard time right now. I have this group that I'm coaching or whatever, and I'm supposed to do it once a week. Well, yes, guess what? It's Friday. And I'm like, oh my gosh, just because I actually have to be on camera. And I'm like, man, but my partner, he called into work today. So I'm like, oh, maybe because I have my 3-year-old here. I'm like, oh, maybe I can squeeze it in today. So you see what I'm saying about the podcast? Yeah. But I'm telling you, in the next 2 years, and just to kind of be clear, I don't want to do a podcast related to like my main business. So nothing to do with the entertainment business that I have. I actually want to give marketing advice to solopreneurs. So it's more like a personal brand building exercise than like a business exercise, because I do want to get into public speaking, and I'm like, oh, this would be the perfect entry point to, building a wider audience and doing, podcasts. So thank you so much for pouring into me. I know this room was not a centering Celeste room, but I always appreciate like advice. So thank you so much, Favour.
You are welcome, Celeste. Yeah, I just want to see you win, and everybody as well listening in. I want you to see you win. I want to see you thrive, because there's so many episodes out there that you could be having. And I know you were talking about, Celeste, doing it once and then doing it every other time or half-assing it. I wouldn't even look at it like that. I would look at it as though if I have 52 weeks in a year, where can I get the best 52 hours in the year? If I need to do it that way, or where can I get the best 52 minutes in the year to do it? We're in January. So if you knock it out, and I know it's going to be like, oh, here we go. If you know exactly what they need based on topics, just answer the questions and move on. Kind of like a teleprompter. Just respond, move on. Respond, move on. And then when you do it, you're now doing it to keep it loaded so that when it's time to produce it, it's now being done. You don't have to do the production. You don't have to do all those things. And when you talked about podcasts, most times when people hear podcasts in today's world, they are thinking automatically video. When I hear podcasts, I think automatically audio. So people have it a little different these days, because podcasts, oh yeah, I got a podcast on YouTube, and YouTube is video. So there's a default that is already preconditioned that puts already a motion in a set position that if you don't move it out of the way, it's going to be what's going to bring you back or kind of impede your progress. So I've always been doing podcasts, 600 episodes in, audio. Yes, there's video with interviews, but the audio is what people listen to, and it's moving faster. You don't have to think about it. We're on Clubhouse right now. This is audio. So this is a practical response to how it can work, but it's just the time. It's either you're doing it on Clubhouse, or you're doing it on your computer, or you're doing it somewhere that you feel comfortable. That's where I would really look at it as well. And Denny says, Celeste, could use some help with what you just mentioned. Get started. Yeah, Denny is a guest, and Denny is challenging you, Celeste. So that's a big test, and I think you need to pass the test.
Does it say that in the chat? What's up with the chat? It has a million things down there now. But where do you say
He
that
said
at?
it in
I
the
didn't see it.
chat.
My chat looks crazy. It has all the stuff. I can't find it. But okay, Denny.
Think about this long term, and think about your business's legacy. Like every episode you do, you're one step closer to having more time back, if I can put it that way. Because if you give an hour, you get an hour back. So imagine all the hours you've given. It's my podcast. I did some research. My podcast right now is worth about, I'm just going to go there and tell you guys a number. I'm not going to guess it because it keeps changing. Because for every episode you release, you're always going to have a new reset. So I'm going to open up the podcast, the We Don't Play podcast. I'm going to check it out right now. It's loading. This is actually very exciting to see. Okay, found it. So let me scroll all the way down to the bottom. So the podcast total runtime, it was 21 before now. That's why I had to check. The podcast, there are 654 episodes registered, 22 days, 16 hours, 39 minutes, 20 seconds. That's a lot of days in a month. It's going to hit almost 30 days because the average length of the podcast is 67 minutes long, which is pretty heavy. So what I'm saying is that with all these words and keywords I'm saying, because you can go to Apple Podcasts right now, listen to a podcast episode, there's a little magnifying glass at the bottom, middle center, like if you look at the center, bottom center, you will see a little magnifying glass, and you can hit on that glass and type in a keyword, and just like a Microsoft Word, it's going to highlight in yellow, and you're going to see all the words that were said in that episode. Just like you can go to a text or WhatsApp and type in a name in the chat, and then that keyword is going to pop up and it will tell you how many times this word was said across the chat. That's the same thing that will happen with your podcast transcript. So if you have that transcript with all those words, let's say you're monetizing, you're talking about this brand, and you mention this brand 100 times in 10 minutes or 100 times in an hour, those names are being registered within the captions auto-generated system, because you may have said this name 100 times, but AI is going to pick one out of the 100 that's going to be contextual to the semantic search of the user. So there's going to be it's so complex that you can't fake it. It's the real thing. But if you're able to focus on just the value exchange, the actual words that people are going to use to find the information that they're searching with, and then you're fulfilling that with results and responses, then you're good to go. So that's one thing you can definitely do with your podcast for monetization. Another thing you can do too is your podcast cover. The podcast cover is important, right? Because the podcast cover, and I'm going to mesh this up too, your episode cover as well is important, because when you have a podcast cover, your podcast cover is what everybody sees. Your episode cover is what the person that found that episode sees. There's a difference. So when you have a podcast cover, that's what everybody looks at. Oh yeah, this is your show. But now if your show is talking about something specific and you have a featured guest, their picture is going to be on that specific episode, not the show. So your show and your episode have two different parameters. And all these parameters I'm talking about are not just gimmicks. This is all code. This is all script, because these are all transcribed in the algorithm and they're all filtered within a specific search database. So if you're fulfilling each and every one of these blocks and you're putting the right keywords that match, then it's going to be easy for you to be found online. And each episode is going to compound more, because if you have an episode in the title, in the description, in the show notes, in the links, in the anchor text, everywhere, and your podcast episode has your show notes with your social media connected, with your website connected, with reference blogs connected, all those things that are being picked up, and now you're distributed across all different platforms via RSS syndication, then it's going to be easy for you to now track back over time. So it's easy for you to now monetize if you're doing that consistently, because now when it comes to monetization, you're creating response, you're creating brand engagement. And now when you start getting up in the charts, you start getting up in the feeds, it's like a whole snowball effect. So you just have to think about your podcast and your episode size as well. And an image size matters. Think about it. Your image size matters. The standard is 3,000 by 3,000 pixels. You can Google this information. I'm just telling you because you don't have to Google it anymore. But when you think about how you are positioning yourself, the size matters, because if your podcast episode or your podcast show is 1800 by 1800 or 1080 by 1080 pixels, then you have another 1,000 plus that you could have used that could have pushed your threshold a bit further above the roof, because you're in competition with another 10% of people who do the same thing you do. So how are you going to get leverage? How are you going to get equity? So it's really, like Celeste said, a math game. You have to understand the math, the science, the engineering, it's not just keywords. It's semantics, it's psychology, it's people, it's life, it's time. These are things that we can't control, only God does. So we have to use our time wisely and use our strategies wisely so we can be able to be smarter with how we deliver than just being I'll say quantitative instead of being qualitative, right? So if it's quantitative, yeah, you can have 500 episodes, but if each of those episodes are delivering value and now each of those are compounding in value, then the podcast episode is just going to be sprouting and sprouting with more value because people find you based on the topics of interest. And now you're the person of interest that they click with. And that's where everything now matches up together. So before I continue to the next one, Multi, thank you for being here. Appreciate your time, Multidimension. We'd love to hear from you. What's your thoughts, questions? The floor is yours. If you're speaking, you're muted. Okay. Let me know when you're back. You probably might not be here, but
Hello.
there we go.
Hello. Can you hear me? Hello. Nice to meet you all. Currently, I'm developing an app in which we have a platform different from the Google. So we don't need to rely on Google, YouTube algorithms. Just go into that platform, and it has all features like Google AdSense and revenue model, YouTube related contents we can make and we can upload. So when we go through the Google platform, we have to pay every time for the server space. We have to pay for their ads, and for Facebook also we have to give payment, make payment for meta ads, and also for the 11 labs and every digital space we have to pay. This is a unified platform, and we have to give a subscription for it, and we can play around everything, and we can make and generate heaps of money through this platform.
Are you talking about podcast SEO or about your software?
It's an hybrid platform. It can right now it's on beta version phase. When it is currently when it is fully developed, it will be available on Apple Store and Google Play Store also.
Okay.
You can download that one. So,
okay. Yeah, that's completely different from what we're talking about right now.
Yeah. So the traditional means the platform which is already monetizing, and the algorithm is being controlled by the big institutions, no longer valid in the next revolution of artificial intelligence and artificial.
Hey, excuse me, sir. I think he booted himself out. I was about to just wait. It's like a ticker, a timer. I was just waiting. I'm one person that is very patient. I don't think you guys have, maybe you know it or maybe you're just finding out, but I'm very patient. I think that's the silence is a virtue. Patience is a virtue. So I just wanted to, I think that was a very nice commercial break right there. So we're talking about podcast SEO. Dr. Fashion is cracking up. What's up? Hey, Dimitri and Vernell, thanks for being here. I see you, Darren, too, out there, too. Monetization is very important, guys. We're talking about organic stuff, nothing paid. So please, I've not spent $1 in this conversation or even a cent, talk less of a penny. I've not spent that today. All I've spent is hours, minutes, and seconds and milliseconds explaining information to you about how you can monetize with podcasting and SEO by intentionally focusing on what people are searching for. I've given you very prime examples. You can go to Spotify and type in what you want to be known for, and then you can now see what the auto suggestion results would give you. If you don't have that in print as a URL, as an actual title in that same exact search format, then you don't have a matching title. Kind of like saying if your name is not matching your ID, then you can't process some documents, because if it's first name, middle name, last name, but instead it's middle name, first name, last name, that's a different naming convention. So it's very important to think about that. I'm just giving you like a very wild analogy. But that's the semantics I'm talking about. So when you go to Google, you go to Apple, go to Spotify, and you see those exact words that you want to be on there for, and your episode is not there, how you can be there is by creating an episode about that title and then turning that into your context where you give your examples, your experience, your value exchange, and then you put in people's courts to decide if they want to listen to it or not. You can't force someone to listen to you. That's not in your control. What's in your control is the quality that you give. So when you give that control with the essence of knowing that someone's going to find it based on search, then you want to be that topic of interest that people can find when they're looking for a podcast they want to connect with. That's it. So think about that with your podcast cover and your episode cover. Another thing to monetize is your pre-rolls. There's pre-rolls, there's mid-rolls, there's post-rolls. These are very important things to factor in as well. Dimitri says, how to build an audience. How often do you drop podcasts? So that's a very good question. Thank you for that question. I drop podcasts at least once a week. At least once. Sometimes I can do once. There's a time I did it twice a day. There's sometimes I've done it once every other day. So my cadence is very based on the need because I'm watching the analytics as I go. So you don't have to drop too many or too little. It depends on your cadence. If you're just starting, then you need to probably do it very consistently so that the algorithm is able to pick it up faster. Because the average number of episodes, let me say it this way, just to be very clear. If you pass through 8 episodes, then you're doing way better than a lot of people who are stopping after 7. Because not many people can go through 2 months of consistent podcast release at a very consistent basis. It's very hard because it takes time, energy, like Celeste was talking about. So if you think about dropping episodes, think about the length and the depth as opposed to the frequency. Because if I drop one episode that's 2 hours long, I don't need to drop another episode till Wednesday or Friday or maybe next week because you haven't taken 2 hours out of your time to finish that one episode. So why am I overfeeding you? So there's a difference between creating value and just creating episodes because you're on a spinning wheel or a hamster wheel. The goal is to deliver quality. So I right now have over 600 episodes and I've done that across 12 seasons. And that has been covered within a 7-year span this August. So technically that means I've had 100 episodes every year. Last year, I actually did the numbers. I published 100 and I think it was 56 episodes last year, anywhere between 147 to 156 episodes last year. So I went above the 100 that I normally go within a normal 52-week calendar year. So that's technically 2 episodes a week. So don't just think about the numbers ambiguously, break it down. So that way you're able to know exactly, am I going to spend 2 hours a day or 2 episodes a week or 2 hours a month or 12 episodes a quarter? It's really up to you. There are no rules. It's really based on how you want to do that too. Denny says, thank you for this invaluable information. I have a conference call, so I'll definitely come back for the replay. Thank you for being here. Denny, Eric says, walk me through the production schedule and the platforms that you use to create. That's a lot of information, Eric. So I want to make sure I can get to 15. But technically, how you're able to do this is choose a platform of interest. Make sure your edits are done well. I use Adobe, by the way. I've been using Adobe since God knows when. I remember recording, because I came from music, actually. Okay, like the highlight reel. Okay, I'll break it down for you, though, in a jiffy. The whole idea is I've been using it since like Cool Edit Pro up until it was, I think, Adobe Audition, and now it's been a lot of names. So now I use Adobe Audition, and people use Riverside, but I've been using a Classic as well. You know, even with the cover art with Adobe, because I have the Creative Suite, the Adobe Creative Suite. So I use that to make sure I have all my things in place. And I come from a musical background because I also have music on Apple Music, on Spotify. So I started my podcast off music. So I paused music and I started creating jingles and instrumentals for my podcast. So every season has a new sound. So right now we're in season 12 and I created a new instrumental for that season. So every time you're hearing the music, if you listen to a specific sound, you'll know, okay, this is season 10, this is season 9, this is season 8. So it's very specific. Now, when you look at the production itself, That could go, some people don't even use music. Some people use sound effects. Some people just do raw audio. So it really depends on your type. That's why I said there's no rules. But technically, how you're able to look at it from end to end is you know what titles you want to discuss. You discuss them, you upload them, you set your pre-rolls, your mid-rolls, your post-rolls. If you run ads in between, that's depending on the platform that you use. Some people do, some don't. But if you do, you set your mid-rolls and then you're good to go. But at the same time, your schedule, when it comes to production time, if you look at your episodes, you have to think about them in a very specific way. Some people spend an hour, some people spend 2 hours, some people spend 2 days to do them. So it's highly dependent on how you do it. And I don't do this by myself too. Last year we started 28 shows we did 28 shows last year. 28 podcasts are out there, and I have a team. So it's an actual running schedule on a business that I'm like, okay, now we know exactly what's going on. How are people connecting with the world? How are they building these things and where are they taking them to? So when I look at my production, I use Adobe within the VST plugins. I have some that I've already, gotten the time pass to. So it just depends on how you want to mix and master your music or your audio or your podcast. We've done audiobooks. It's a lot. And it's going to a point where now I've looked at monetization all through and I'm like, what is the real value exchange here? What is a real value exchange? Because everyone's going to say, oh yeah, I got to get this microphone. Or what did you use? Oh, I got to get this microphone. I don't really care for microphones. That's something you're probably going to be like, huh? Yeah, because I've had the same microphone that I bought in Dubai in 2014 that I still use today. It's a Sontronics STC3X. It's a British brand. And I got to connect with them on LinkedIn, and they're an amazing business. It's 2026? That's 12 years. I've not gone to Guitar Center to look for a microphone or go to eBay or Amazon to buy a microphone. You can do that too. But I came off music. So it's not like I started a podcast from scratch. Yes, it was from scratch, but I had musical intelligence and knowledge background to be able to now turn off the music and turn on the talk. So that's how I was able to switch it up in between. But there's so many ways you can do it today. There's Riverside. There's 11 Labs. I think the person that was here talked about it too. So there are platforms that you can really use it for extensions. There's a captions app. You can create your own things if you want to do short videos. I don't even do much of short videos. So in my mind, I'm like, okay, if I'm doing less than somebody who's creating 5 reels a day for their episode, and I'm in 156 countries and they're trying to get 10 downloads, where is the meeting point? Where is the middle point? Where is the actual value exchange? So that's why I'm very big on the technical first, because when you set up the technical and you know exactly where it is, it's easy for you to sell. Because if you show up on LinkedIn today, on Instagram tomorrow, you know that you have a solid foundation and you have structured data that you can work with as well. Dimitri says, which tools do you use to make sounds? How do you post across social medias? Which platforms have the most leverage? That's exactly what I'm saying. You have to think about, and you see the question you asked is the most leverage. So you're looking for the most output as opposed to putting the most input. That's the difference. The most input is to feed the algorithm with information so that when it's time to put the output, it's 20%. You already laid the 80% down. Instead of trying to figure out the 80% where you don't even own 100% of the intellectual property on Facebook or Instagram. So that's where I think about it long term. LinkedIn is one great place I can say for sure, because my LinkedIn account now has close to 18,000 connections. And I know by the end of this year, God willing, it's going to hit 25, 30 plus, because I've seen it. I just did a poll today, and let me actually check the poll. I did a poll today. It was 38 votes this morning. And I just said, hey guys, let me just ask y'all a question. The question is, poll, what's your go-to first drink in the morning? Now there are 41 votes, 540 impressions. I posted this 7 hours ago on LinkedIn. I said, what's your first to go-to drink? Is it water, coffee, tea, or juice? That has nothing to do with SEO, but it has everything to do with your health. So I look at it from the perspective of, people don't want to hear me talk about SEO every single day. They want to hear conversations. They want to hear, what did you have for breakfast? You know, that's a more lighter, easy way of connecting than what's your favorite color. It's different. Hey, Debbie, welcome. And what's up, Ryan? So you look at it from that perspective and you're saying, okay, how do I, section these things out? So it's really depending on how you're able to use these things. So tool wise, you're going to have to spend for these tools. Adobe is there. Riverside is there. There are different platforms that you can use as well, but it's really depending on how you want to use it. So you have your pre-rolls, you have your mid-rolls, you have your post-rolls. Another way to monetize, and I'm going to say this in the next few minutes because we're going to wrap up in the next 5 minutes. I have an episode to actually do because I have 2 guests today. And with this, I'm literally booked. It's just a lot of schedules, which is exciting. And I'm just like, yes, this is a new era. And I feel like if you just use your podcast, your voice, your platform, and show out there for people, or be a light or a guide to someone, it's a blessing. Because I love helping people. That's one thing I love doing. That's why I'm in business. Because I love to help people solve problems that they can't see for themselves, that I can help them achieve. And everything to me, I don't look at it as a problem. I look at it as a challenge. And when you overcome the challenge, you're able to be tenacious to the next one. So here's another way you can monetize, right? I talked about 15, right? And I said, I'll give you 15. So the first one is podcast title. Second one is podcast description. Third one is author. Fourth one is genre. Fifth one is episode title. Sixth one is episode description. Seventh one is podcast cover. Eighth one is episode cover. Ninth one is pre-rolls to post-rolls. 10th one is public and private RSS feeds. That's another thing. I'm going to dive into that later very soon. There are public RSS feeds and private ones. I'm sure you've probably gone to Apple and you've looked at somebody saying, oh yeah, just get this episode for 49 cents or 99 cents or 29 cents or 5 cents or whatever cents. And they're going to subscribe to that platform, right? That's a private RSS feed. You can use helloaudio.fm. You can use platforms like that. You can use supercast.com. I talked to them there in British Columbia, in Vancouver. And, it's a nice thing that you can see. I'm like, that's where they usually have, within the Canada area, they're able to have their businesses. And you're like, okay, this was about 6 years ago and they're still doing really well. So check those platforms out and you can do RSS feeds there and, create your episodes, make them private, and then build communities, kind of like a Patreon in a way, which you can do, or buy me a coffee, but these are more structured that you can be able to have, subscriptions as well. That's another way to monetize. Another one is email affiliates. You can send them to your website. That's the next point. Social media, that's the next point. Backlinks, that's the next point. And then podcast style, that's the 15th one. So if you look at all these different ones, ask yourself, out of these 15, which ones do I have? Which ones don't I have? And if I have them, how well are they doing? If they're doing well, how much better can I do with what I already have? So that you're able to now extend it and know that, okay, I'm not trying to release episodes and don't do episode 1, then the title, it should be the keyword. And then episode 1 could be at the end. I don't even put episode 1 or 2 anymore because people don't really type like that. People don't talk like that. So this whole thing is great for structure. But by the time you realize that it's about the information that you give, it's a value exchange in itself. That's how you're able to know, okay, yeah, this thing is different. Even if you look at like Diary of a CEO, he doesn't do episode 50 or episode 500. You don't see those things. So that's the thing I'm telling you now. You can do that. That's great for numerology. By the end of the day, it's for you to decide how do you want to show up and how do you want the semantics to flow in your favor and build your capacity by creating the capacity online using keywords that you found that are heavy on search, that have a high bid, that have a high cost per click. And if you're able to do that research and you're able to put that into a sequence, then you're great. So if you're a local business and you want to use a podcast, these are the buttons, these are the boxes, these are the searches that you want to put in, and then put your city and state in these brackets in your podcast description. Put it into your author, put it into your episodes, put it into your podcast show, right? You don't have to put it there all the time, but let it be there too. And for your website, there's something called podcast schema. I don't even want to go deep into that, but it's there. It's there for a reason. So when you have all these things connected to your website, you have a strong website that has emails, people are subscribing to your show, people are actually listening to your show. When I was talking to somebody in the UK 2 days ago, she was talking about an episode that I published. And I didn't talk to her. I don't say, hey, have you listened to my show? Hey, have you listened to my show? Hey, have you listened to my show? I don't ask that's the last question you ever hear me. But when I hear someone say, hey, I listened to your show, and I ask them, what did they listen to? And they tell me, it tells me a lot about what other people are not saying. So it's really dependent on how you're able to look at things and know exactly where you want to go. So before we go, Celeste, would you like to tell people what would be the biggest takeaway and how can they connect with you?
I think for me, the biggest takeaway is to not overthink things. I think I'm speaking to myself. I think overthinking kind of stops us from implementing a lot of the times. And I had kind of gave a little pep talk previously to the room, but how like these high tech things seem so hard, but it's mostly because it's just things we've never done. And once we do them, we're like, oh, that wasn't so hard. So, I'm guilty of this too, but I think we all should kind of be doers instead of just listening to all these things and taking notes and then we never implement them. Everything's just a big old experiment at the end of the day. You're gonna plug in things and then kind of see what worked and reconfigure the rest. So yeah. And then as far as how to get in touch with me, just hit me up on Instagram. I'm not taking any marketing clients these days, but if you want to chit chat or, have a question, I'm always down to help. So thank you so much again, Favour, for being consistent on here and hosting the room.
Thank you so much for being here too. And it's always exciting to see you here because normally it's like, okay, we're about to wrap up. And then you're here, but now it's like, bing, you're right here, right on time. So thank you. Appreciate you so much. Thank you as well, Eric. These were great questions today. Austin, Vernell, Ryan, Mo, Pongpo, Dimitri, that was great questions. Denny, Calvin, thank you again. And for being here with us today. I really appreciate you guys and your questions because I think this helps. And if there's a topic you want me to talk about, put it in the chat. What would you want me to talk about? Put it in the chat because I would like to bring a topic back for you, for us to discuss and go deeper into. Because what I've talked about today, I'm going to bring this again for regional businesses. I'm also going to bring it for national businesses and international businesses. So the tips are different, but they're the same. It's gonna be like an Inception movie. That's what it's gonna feel like. Because if you are in any of those capacities, whatever you listen to in one could affect the other. Because even if you're international, you're still local. So you have to think about where you position yourself from and when you position yourself to. And podcasting will be one of the biggest anchors that you can have as a business that can thrive you on completely different capacities. So if you want to connect with me, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn, connect with me here on Clubhouse. I also have all my links available on my face, so you can touch it and find the links there available. Also click the link above if you want to get emails like this, get more information, insights, and deep information that you can understand with knowledge applied, and then you can use it for yourself or use it for your team or hire us as a team to work with your team and make sure that you can get the best foot forward for your business in 2026. So thank you all for listening. I appreciate each and every one of you. Have a blessed day. Enjoy the rest of your week and enjoy your weekend. Stay hydrated, stay warm for those who are cold, and stay blessed. Talk to you all soon. Bye for now. If you have reached this point of the episode, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to the We Don't Play podcast show. I hope this has helped you, given you some insight, because every time I come on here or anytime I bring somebody on here, a guest, a speaker, anyone that is of relevance to you listening is always going to give you educational value, definitely entertainment value, and most importantly, empowerment value. So thank you for listening to the We Don't Play podcast show every day. And if you want to reach out to me, you know where to find me. Click the links in the description or go to info@playinc.online, info@playinc.online, and book a call. Let's talk. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk SEO. Let's talk marketing. Let's talk business. Let's talk scaling. And I look forward to meeting you and learning more about you and your business. Till we meet in the next episode, have a blessed evening. Have a blessed day, night, wherever you are in the world. And I look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Bye for now. And don't forget, Jesus loves you.